Hi everyone. So in this video and set of slides, we're going to talk a little bit about the structure of the course. This is part one of two. So in this one, we'll talk about the structure and also, basically assessment or the learning activities that we're going to be doing this semester. So the first thing you need to know, and I know I kind of said this in some Mayos and stuff, but I really want people to understand so that there's no confusion as we go along and people show up for a class that isn't there. We're using an asynchronous format for this course. So again, what that means is that we won't have classes at every single time block. So the college gave us a schedule, Monday and Wednesday, 4 o'clock, but we won't meet every single time. Okay, and most of the time, if there are meetings, not everybody is expected to be there. So we'll mostly be working in small groups, and people will come when they want, pretty much, and we'll see more details about that. So there are no formal classes. When we do get together, I'm not going to be there lecturing, or organizing these big fancy collaborative group things. I love doing that kind of thing in the classroom, but online it's just for my own mental health. I just can't do it. So I chose this formula. We will get together on the first day of classes to just kind of break the ice and get to know each other a little bit, and so that I can answer any kind of initial concerns that you have while we're all together. So Monday, January 18th, during our class time, which is 4 o'clock, you'll see it pop up. I'm going to use Zoom through Leia. And so some of you might have used this before, but just in case you forgot, because what is time even these days, right? Or if you're new to Vanier, so when you get onto your landing page on Omnivox, you're going to see a little box that says what's next, and any Zoom courses that are scheduled in any of your classes will show up there. So you can just go there Monday just a little bit before 4 and click there to join. That said, because I'll explain later, there will be some others where not everybody is expected to be there. Sometimes you'll see it there, but if you're not planning to come, you can just ignore it and you won't be penalized. So what's going to happen instead of kind of 3 hours of classes, which is split in 2 blocks of an hour and a half each during the week, is that I'll be giving you weekly activities that you can do when you want. So this asynchronous format, in a sense, I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, because some people like that thing of getting together twice a week and it helps them focus. On the other hand, this format, you can still do that in the sense that if you want to plan your week where you're doing the work for this course during those time blocks, you can do that. And I think that for a lot of you, that is going to be enough time to get everything done. If you need a bit more time, well, with a regular class, normally you'd be in class for 3 hours a week and then doing a bit of extra. So you can work around that. But if you like to have more flexibility, where like maybe 4 o'clock is your time of the day when you're feeling exhausted and you need a nap, or you want to go for a run or a walk or something, or just zone out on a video game for a little bit to clear your head from the 5 other classes you had that day, well, then you can do this at another time. You can find a time in the week where you just sit and do this all in one chunk, or you can do a little bit every day, or 3 a.m., depending on your schedule. So there's that. So on Wednesdays during our class time, there's going to be, every week, unless otherwise specified, an optional group discussion. So that's going to be informal, and people are going to be invited to come if they want, to talk about the stuff from that week. And it's going to be very participant-led, so whatever you bring to the table is what we'll talk about. That said, as you'll see in the assessment and the things you'll get marks for, you can get up to 10 points for coming to 5 of these, for 2 points each. And I'll explain more about that in detail later on. And I know that for some students, they have, with the asynchronous format, one of the things they're worried about is that they're just going to be left to their own devices without any support. right? Because you don't have that meeting twice a week or once a week with the teacher. I'm still, there for my students. I'm available. I'm not going to let you kind of, leave you to your own devices. So there's a few ways that you'll be able to see me other than those weekly group discussions on Zoom. I have open office hours, so just like most of us do when we're on campus, we have our office hours that are posted on our door and in the outline, and we tell students just drop in at these times. I'm going to do that with Zoom. The link to my Zoom office is already up on Leia, right at the top of distributed documents, and you can just show up, and you'll be in a waiting room, and I'll let you in. If I'm with a student, then I'll kind of let you in when I'm done with that student. So sometimes you might have to wait for a little bit, but I don't suspect that's going to happen a lot because office hours usually aren't a big draw. So that's why I also have a booking link that is also at the top of distributed documents on Leia. And if my office hours don't work for you, because you have another class or something, you can look at my booking site and see, like every week it depends on my own schedule for that week. I'll put a few days and times for people to choose from to book a 20-minute consultation. If you need less, that's fine too. And then if none of those times work either, then you can send me a MyO, but only if those other times don't work, because my schedule gets pretty packed as well. So I'm willing to make a concession, but only if none of the other times work at all. Okay. So what are we going to do instead of going to class twice a week? I'll be giving you some things to read, from one of our 2 textbooks, or from some online sources, sometimes some little videos. Again, this is all going to be by Indigenous people. And I'll also upload a PowerPoint presentation like this with a video narration that you can look at. I'll really max them at 30 minutes, maybe 45, max. And basically I'll just kind of touch on some of the main points from that week's material. And obviously, you can look at the PowerPoint on its own. It's a little bit like, when we have in-person classes, if you get the PowerPoint after but you weren't in class, you don't really get all the nuances and all the clarifications. So the video is going to be meant to help you kind of digest what you're learning about a little bit, and I'll add my own little things in there that won't necessarily show up in the PowerPoint. So based on the stuff that you've learned from the video presentation and from the readings and videos or whatever you did, you're going to have 2 or 3 questions to answer in a Word document that, again, I'll provide that and give more detailed explanations. And they're going to be short questions, so maybe 50 to 75 word responses based on the material, always designed to get you thinking a little bit and digesting the material. And there's going to be a vocabulary practice quiz every week. And so, as you'll see when we look at the main grid, there are 2 quizzes throughout the semester. So to practice for those, every week you'll get to kind of practice, and it's low stakes. It's like 1%, right? So it's kind of a good way to practice and see what it is that you need to practice, to focus on. And there's going to be a little journal entry. Again, here we're just talking about a paragraph. If you want to write more, that's okay. But the journal is going to, help have some questions attached to it to give you some leads on things that you can think about in a deeper way. And you'll give it to me. I'll give you feedback, and that document is going to go back and forth between us all semester. So it's like we're having our own personal conversation that's kind of helping you figure stuff out. So these 3 things together that you're going to do every week are worth 4%, and there's going to be 15 of those for a total of 60. That's a big chunk of your mark, so you're getting kind of, instead of, like, imagine if you got points just for going to class and doing stuff. It's kind of the same thing, except that you do it when you want. So again, like all these components, you're going to get documents that explain them in more detail, okay? So in terms of the a bigger kind of set of assessments throughout the semester. Again, for each thing on here, you're going to get a document that explains everything. So February 1st, there's a small 5% paper. It's not going to be anything huge, and that's just going to be a way for you to let me know what you already know, if you know, or what you think you know, or what you've been exposed to. So that's going to be different for everybody, and this is not about judging you. You're not going to be marked. You're not going to lose points if you're like, well, I went to school and we talked about, you know, say the Iroquois Confederacy way back at the beginning of colonization, and then we never heard about them, and that's it. And other than that, just Hollywood movies. Like, that's not your fault. If you're not Indigenous and you have very limited knowledge about Indigenous people at this stage in your life, it's not your fault, because the educational system has failed Indigenous people, and it's failed non-Indigenous people as well. And Hollywood, as you hopefully know by now at your age, is horrible in terms of representation of pretty much anybody, because it gives us all these stereotypes that are very false and very dangerous in a lot of cases. So this small paper is you'll get your points for doing it and following certain criteria and presenting it and being, you know, kind of honest and authentic. But it's not judging what it is that you do know. And if you're an Indigenous person, this is your chance for you to let me know, you know, whatever it is that you feel that I should know about your experience. And again, like I said, I think in the other slides, I'm confused now and I lose track of time very easily. For Indigenous students from here or from elsewhere who, you know, like I don't want students to feel like they're ever going to be put on the spot and forced to divulge more than what they want to. So it's really according to your comfort level, you know, whatever it is that you want to share. And that's perfectly valid. And also, the way I teach this course, not all knowledge has to come from academic sources. So if you learned knowledge about your own culture from, you know, your aunties and knowledge keepers and elders, and that's just as legitimate as what any academic could write. Okay. Vocabulary quizzes. So we're going to have two of them, one on March 1st worth 4% and one on April 19th worth 6%, for a total of 10%. And they're not going to be very hard, especially since you'll have little practice quizzes every week. And this is important because you know, non-Indigenous people in particular, again, if all you've learned is from high school and from Hollywood, you probably don't have the right words. So, and it's important, not just as academics, but as respectful people, it's important to use the right language for things. Okay. Weekly activities. So what I described on the previous slides, those activities you're going to do every week. So 4% per week for 15%, for 15 weeks times 4%, total of 60%. And the other thing, and you'll get more instructions on this as well in a separate document, every Wednesday, as I mentioned, we're going to have kind of an open discussion on Zoom about the stuff from that week, or any things that relevant things that students want to talk about. And you can come to all of them if you want. Like, you're really welcome to come to as many of them as you want. You won't be penalized for the ones you don't attend. The minimum that you need to come to is 5, and 5 where you're actively engaging. So I'm going to give you some guidelines in terms of what that means. And it's going to mean, for example, coming with questions, or talking about something that confused you in the reading, or something that made you reflect a little bit deeper, that kind of, you know, inspired to think in a deeper way, or something that you disagree with, or that you're kind of like, that makes me feel a little weird and uncomfortable. And, you know, discomfort is a good thing when we're learning, because it leads us to grow. So we can talk about these things in respectful ways. So say you choose to come every week or 10 weeks or something. Well, for 5 of those times, you're going to be asked to engage in a deeper way, and you'll get marks for that. And you're not going to be doing a presentation, and you don't even have to talk on the camera if you don't want to. You can type it into the chat. I'll give you more guidelines on that, but that's a very easy 10% to get there. 5 times 2%. And then at the end of the semester, there's a paper, and I'll, again, when the time comes, I'll give you plenty of guidelines on that and options and things like that. And basically, that is going to be meant, that's going to be for you to kind of pick a topic where you can show me what you know, and a lot of it you'll be able to kind of dig back into your weekly assignments. They're all leading up to that final paper, essentially, where you can kind of pick a thread there that you would like to, from that first paper you wrote about prior knowledge, well, what has changed, what have you gained, right? So that's, but more specific to one topic. So mostly you'll be able to use your smaller assignments in that, and maybe look for one or two extra sources to round things out a little bit on your topic of choice. Okay, so the last thing I want to say about this is that usually the weekly activities are going to be due on the Wednesday, because that way, if you those of you who do show up to the online discussions, well, then we'll have something to talk about. It's not really, there won't be anything to talk about if you just show up and you haven't been exposed to any of the material. So that's the reasoning there. So they'll be due on the Wednesday each week. But for the first week, because, people are still getting the hang of this semester, I'm going to give you a bit of extra time, and you can hand them in on Friday. That said, if you choose to come on this first Wednesday, I'll ask that you will have at least started to read some of the stuff so that we have something to talk about. Okay? So, some of you, I wish I could ask you who's heard of Gloria Gaynor, but I can't. But you can also always let me know. Oh yeah, I've heard of her. If your parents are kind of around my generation, Generation X, or even older, that you might have heard of Gloria Gaynor. She had a very famous song, "I Will Survive." There have been tons of remakes. So if you heard somebody else sing it, it's a remake. Gloria Gaynor is the original. She's fabulous. So her song was "I Will Survive." We will survive. I know we're going through hard times right now, and I've tried to set up the semester to make it manageable while still providing a rich learning experience. So, and I'm here to help you get through it. We're all going to get through it together. And I really like this picture here of this little plant pushing through the crack in the cement. It's hard. Sometimes you have to push a little bit, but it's very resilient, as we all are. So if you have any questions or concerns, part of being resilient is reaching out for help when you need it. So please don't be shy to ever reach out for help if there's something in any of this that confuses you.